In the southern United States, buried between Louisiana and Mississippi, lay an infamous stretch of asphalt that locals called Road 13. Shrouded in dense forest, it was a crumbling, forgotten highway that twisted and turned like a serpent. Even in broad daylight, it seemed cloaked in an eerie shadow, as though the sunlight refused to penetrate the canopy of ancient trees. By night, it transformed into something altogether more sinister. A place where whispers of legend collided with cold reality. The stories about Road 13 varied. Some spoke of ghostly apparitions wandering along the roadside, while others described cars breaking down for no discernible reason. The most chilling tale, however, was the one about the red-eyed stalker, a shadowy figure said to prey on those who dared to drive the road after dark. No one who claimed to have seen it ever described the entity the same way. Some said it looked like a grotesque deer, others like a twisted human figure, and some even swore it changed shape right before their eyes. Kelly, Jason, and Sarah were on the tail end of their road trip. What had started as a carefree adventure across southern America had turned into a tiring journey filled with back roads, pit stops, and endless hours of driving. They were young, restless, and eager to reach Florida before the weekend. As the late afternoon sun dipped lower, casting golden rays across the rolling fields, Jason suggested a shortcut. "Guys, if we take this road," he said, holding his phone up to show the map, "we can save at least an hour." Kelly, who was driving, glanced at the screen. "Looks fine to me, just a straight shot through the woods." Sarah, sitting in the back seat, shifted uncomfortably. She had grown up in Louisiana and knew a thing or two about the legends of the area. "What road is that?" she asked cautiously. Jason squinted at his phone. Route 13? Sarah's heart sank. Number? Absolutely not. Jason rolled his eyes. "Don't tell me you're scared of a number." "It's not the number, it's the road," Sarah snapped. "People say it's cursed." "Oh, come on," Kelly said with a grin. "It's just an old back road. Don't tell me you're buying into those ghost stories." Sarah crossed her arms and stared out the window. "Do what you want, but don't say I didn't warn you." The group pressed on, and soon the minivan rumbled onto Road 13. At first, the drive seemed uneventful. The trees pressed in on either side, their branches forming a dense, shadowy canopy that blotted out the remaining light. "This isn't so bad," Kelly said, glancing at Sarah in the rearview mirror. "See? Just a normal road." Jason nodded in agreement, but Sarah remained silent, her eyes fixed on the darkening forest. As twilight descended, the atmosphere began to change. The air grew heavier, and an unnatural stillness settled over the road. The only sound was the low hum of the engine and the crunch of tires on gravel. "This place is creepy," Jason admitted, his earlier bravado fading. Sarah glanced at him sharply. "Now you're scared?" Before Jason could reply, something darted across the road ahead. Kelly slammed on the brakes, and the van skidded to a halt. "What the hell was that?" Jason shouted, gripping the dashboard. "I don't know," Kelly said, her voice shaking. "A deer, maybe?" But as the headlights cut through the darkness, they revealed a figure standing at the edge of the road. It was tall and thin, its limbs unnaturally long, and its head tilted at an odd angle. Its glowing red eyes stared directly at them. "What is that?" Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. The figure took a single step toward the car, then another. "Drive!" Jason yelled. Kelly didn't need to be told twice. She slammed her foot on the gas, and the van lurched forward, leaving the figure behind. But the relief was short-lived. As they sped down the road, the engine began to sputter. The headlights flickered, casting eerie shadows across the trees. "No, no, no," Kelly muttered, gripping the wheel tightly. "Not now." The van slowed to a crawl before finally dying altogether. The headlights dimmed, leaving them in near total darkness. "Great," Jason groaned. "What now?" Sarah leaned forward, her voice a harsh whisper. "It's the road. I told you we shouldn't have come here." Kelly ignored her and turned the key in the ignition. The engine coughed but refused to start. "That thing," Jason said, glancing nervously out the window. "What if it's still out there?" As if in response, a low, guttural noise echoed through the trees. It sounded like a growl, but distorted, almost mechanical. Sarah grabbed. Kelly sat frozen, her hands gripping the steering wheel as her mind raced. The van was silent now, the absence of the creature's screeches almost more unsettling than the noise itself. Her heart pounded in her chest as she glanced at the open passenger door. "Jason? Sarah?" she whispered into the void, but there was no answer. The forest seemed to close in around her, the shadows growing longer and darker. Every rustle of leaves and snap of a twig outside the van made her flinch. She didn't dare move, didn't dare breathe too loudly, afraid that whatever had been on the roof might come back. Minutes passed like hours. Eventually, her fear gave way to determination. She couldn't just sit there. She had to find her friends. Grabbing her phone, Kelly turned on the flashlight and stepped out of the van. The beam of light cut through the thick darkness, but it wasn't enough to dispel the oppressive feeling of being watched. "Jason! Sarah!" she called out, her voice trembling. The only response was the echo of her own voice and the occasional rustle of leaves. She followed the path they had taken, the flashlight flickering as she moved deeper into the woods. The trees seemed alive, their twisted branches reaching out like skeletal arms. Kelly's pulse quickened as she thought about the creature. Was it watching her now? Was it waiting for her to stray too far from the road? "Guys, where are you?" she called again, louder this time. A faint sound reached her ears, a cry, muffled and distant. "Sarah!" Kelly shouted, breaking into a run. The cry came again, this time clearer. It was definitely Sarah, and it sounded like she was in pain. Kelly pushed through the underbrush, the branches scratching her arms and face. The flashlight flickered again, then died, plunging her into total darkness. "No, no, no," she muttered, smacking the phone in frustration. The cry sounded again, closer now. Kelly stumbled forward, her hands outstretched to feel her way through the trees. "Sarah, I'm coming!" She broke into a small clearing and froze. In the pale moonlight, she saw Sarah lying on the ground, her face pale and her eyes wide with fear. Jason was nowhere to be seen. "Sarah!" Kelly ran to her side, dropping to her knees. "What happened? Where's Jason?" Sarah's lips moved, but no sound came out. She was trembling, her hands clutching at Kelly's arm with surprising strength. It's here," Sarah whispered finally. "What's here?" Kelly asked, but before Sarah could answer, a low growl echoed through the clearing. Kelly whipped her head around, searching the darkness for the source of the sound. The growl grew louder, and the air seemed to vibrate with its intensity. "Get up, Sarah," Kelly said, pulling her friend to her feet. "We have to go." But Sarah shook her head, her legs buckling beneath her. "I can't. It's too late." "No, it's not," Kelly said firmly. "Come on." She slung Sarah's arm over her shoulder and began to drag her toward the road. The growling followed them, growing closer with every step. Kelly's breath came in ragged gasps as she fought to keep moving. The trees seemed to close in around them, the darkness becoming almost suffocating. Then, out of the corner of her eye, she saw them. Those glowing red eyes staring at them from the shadows. "Don't look at it," Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible. Kelly averted her gaze, focusing on the path ahead. But the creature was relentless, its growls turning into guttural screeches that sent shivers down her spine. Just when Kelly thought she couldn't go any farther, the road came into view. She stumbled onto the asphalt, dragging Sarah with her. But the relief was short-lived. The creature stepped out of the woods, its twisted form fully illuminated by the pale moonlight. Its limbs were unnaturally long, its torso impossibly thin, and its face was a nightmare, a grotesque mix of animal and human features, with a gaping mouth full of jagged teeth. Kelly screamed, her body frozen in terror. The creature let out an ear-piercing screech and lunged toward them. "Run!" Sarah yelled, finding strength in her desperation. Kelly didn't need to be told twice. She pulled Sarah to her feet and they ran, their feet pounding against the cracked asphalt. The creature gave chase, its movements unnatural and jerky, but terrifyingly fast. Kelly's lungs burned as she pushed herself to keep going. She glanced over her shoulder and saw the creature gaining on them. "We're not going to make it," Sarah sobbed, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, we are," Kelly said through gritted teeth. Up ahead, she saw headlights. A car was coming down the road, its engine a beacon of hope in the darkness. Kelly waved her arms frantically, screaming for help. The car slowed, its high beams illuminating the scene. The creature stopped, its glowing eyes narrowing as it hissed at the approaching vehicle. Then, With a final screech, it retreated into